Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Intacct Product Tour. My name is Ki Chong. I'm a Cloud Specialist here at Intacct. And I'm joined today by Linda Pinion, one of our Solution Specialists, who will be providing our demonstration for you today. Linda, you there?
I'm here. How are you today, Ki?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I welcome everyone to 2014 and joining us today. Perhaps it's cold where you are. It's cold where I'm at, and it's not supposed to be. So thank you for joining us. Ki and I have a lot of great information to share with you, so I guess we better get started.
All right, thank you. So I want to go over a few housekeeping items. We really want to make this interactive, so if there's any questions you have throughout the presentation, please do enter them into the chat or the Q&A box, and we will be stopping in between segments to answer those questions for you. In the event that we don't get to your questions before the presentation is over, we will follow up with you afterwards. And if you could do us a quick favor, at the end of this presentation, there will be a quick survey. We would love to hear from you on how we can improve this for future audiences. So today's agenda, we want to start with some trends in financial management. We want to share with you some of the things that we've been hearing with the customers and the partners that we work with. And then Linda will get right into showing you Intact's key financial management capabilities on the procure-to-pay, the order-to-cash process, and then our reporting engine. And then we'll do a quick summary and wrap-up on what you've heard today and share with you some of the additional resources that are available as you continue your research and evaluation. So we're going to start with some trends in financial management. So many of the CFOs and the controllers that we work with tell us that in their current role, they're really bogged down with manual tasks, rekeying information, and manipulating data in Excel. But where they'd really like to be, and you may feel this way yourself, is really being a business accelerator, shifting that role from data entry to data verification. So being able to do more analysis and become, again, more of that business accelerator, so helping finding new ways to optimize that business. We'll show you how today through better efficiencies with automation in your processes, you can really allow technology to be that scorekeeping and gatekeeping role so you can truly shift your role from tactical to strategic. So Intacct is a best-in-class, award-winning financial management and accounting solution. We provide deep functionality from a general ledger, AP/AR, to project accounting, deferred revenue management, and multi-entity and multi-currency consolidation, and a very powerful reporting center. That is not a third-party solution. It's native to Intacct, and I think with what Linda will show you, it'll really be a strong differentiator for the Intacct solution. So we hope that what you'll be able to see today is that you'll be able to eliminate many of the tasks and processes that you do manually, and you can really then shift your role and add more efficiencies to your organization and tackle some of those key initiatives that you might have been putting off. So Intacct is a cloud-based or software-as-a-service solution. And if this is not a familiar term for you, I'm just going to do a quick introduction. The cloud really allows you to have access to information anywhere, anytime. Today we are using WebEx, which is a cloud-based solution that allows everyone to be able to log in from where you are to have access to this presentation today. Another benefit between a cloud solution and an on-premise solution for an accounting process or solution is that it requires the vendor to be responsible for the maintenance of your hardware, software, backup, security, and any other network infrastructures so that you really can allow you to focus on your core business. Additionally, Intacct has really incredible flexibility. So it really allows you to configure software to fit your business processes and integrate with any other current solutions that you have today. One that we'll highlight will be Salesforce CRM. And then what more is that Intacct has a pay-as-you-go subscription, giving you the ability to scale your Intacct solution as you grow. We've had many organizations who started out as a single entity and have grown into a multi-entity organization, and we've easily been able to grow with them. So I'd like to just show you a little view of some of our Intacct customers, and we hope that after this presentation you'll want to join and be part of the Intacct family. One of the things I like to point out here is that the AICPA, they did an independent study of all the accounting solutions out in the mid-market, and they have given us the exclusive preferred provider recommendation. One of the things or some of the reasons they chose us includes the depths of our automation and our exceptionally strong accounting architecture, such as multi-ledger and multi-entity capabilities, in an easy-to-use, affordable, and accessible way, but still having that underlying horsepower to handle some sophisticated accounting. One particular customer, Guidewire, they are the top IPO for 2012, but they became an Intacct client when they were just 40 employees, and we've grown with them to over 800 globally and through that successful IPO. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Linda so she can go ahead and tell you a little bit more about what she's going to demonstrate for you today and get on with our demonstration. Linda?
Okay. Thank you so much, Key. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So if that changes for anyone that's on the call, please let us know in the chat box. And speaking of the chat box, don't forget that's where you can post your questions along the way. We'll stop and open it up for questions periodically. So don't be shy. No one else can see the questions that you post. And again, as Key mentioned, if we don't get to your question, we will follow up after the presentation. Now, there's a couple things I just want to kind of go back to some of the points that Key has made in her opening. You know, one is that we're seeing a real shift in what we're hearing and seeing from our prospects and from our existing customers. The shift there is that they want to be more strategic as opposed to being tactical, and they want to understand what that total cost of ownership of this type of solution is. And for those of you who are new to cloud and perhaps need a little bit more education on cloud, please feel free to ask those questions. In fact, I would encourage you to ask those questions, and I would encourage you to let us chat with you about total cost of ownership, because it is a very different model than perhaps what you're used to. Now, for today's presentation, what I'm going to focus on, as Key mentioned, is three distinct areas. I'm going to get outside of the box a little bit and introduce you to Intacct if this is your first time. So I'll cover a little bit of, you know, navigation and kind of the lay of the land, if you will. But again, focusing on three areas: procure to pay, order to cash, and reporting. Now, these are three areas that, in my experience, every company, no matter what kind of company you are, needs to have these business processes functioning in their organization. For many of you, I would presume and really lay some money down that you're doing many of these functions manually today. And manually meaning that you don't have an automated solution. You don't have technology helping you automate that solution. So what I'm going to show you is a lot of workflow. I'm going to show you a business process. I'm going to show you different users. Really try to give you that look and feel of what it would be like for your organization to use a solution like Intacct to drive those business processes. In addition to that, as Key mentioned, when we get to order to cash, I'm going to highlight one of our integrations, and that integration is with Salesforce. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Salesforce, I'll do a quick introduction of what Salesforce is and its function and role here, and then I'll show you that integration and outline some of the benefits and value of integrating a customer relationship management solution to your financial solution being Intacct. And then we'll finish up with reporting. So let me go ahead and share my desktop, and we'll go ahead and get started here. Before I get started, let me verify with Key. Can you see my desktop okay?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Again, don't forget the chat box, and we're going to go ahead and get started. If this is your first time to look at Intacct, let me just outline a few things to you so you can see a little bit of the user experience, and that's very important to us. We're a very user-centric organization, and what that means to you is we are sensitive to how we design the user interface, how you navigate, how easy it is for you to use the solution, and how we manage our updates and our enhancements to the solution. So what you're looking at here is a dashboard, and you're going to see me come back to a dashboard several times throughout my tour here. This is the controller dashboard, and just so that you know, I am the controller today. I'm also going to be an employee in this organization, and as an Intacct user, every user can have their own dashboard. So you're looking at my controller dashboard here. If I flip over to the employee, this is the employee dashboard. So very different reports, different views, even different colors, if you choose to, can be put on your dashboard. So your dashboard is like your dashboard in your car. It's the window to how your business is tracking, and it has the information that's important to you in the role in which you play in the organization. Now, I should also mention that this is a single entity, and one of the things that Key mentioned was being able to grow and to be flexible with the solution. Well, part of that growth and being flexible says, you know, this is the way we do it today. This is how we're structured today. We're a single company, but in the future, we may be multi-company. What happens to us then? Does Intacct go away? Do we have to look for a new solution? And I would tell you, we absolutely don't go away because Intacct has, as I like to say, different flavors. So we have different types of environments. We have an offering that is a multi-entity offering, and I've just switched screens here on you, so you're seeing a different view here. Again, a controller dashboard, but now you're in a multi-entity environment where I have multiple companies. So you can see I've got 4 distinct companies here in different states. So if you're that type of an organization, Intacct will grow with you and remain flexible so it can continue to be the solution. So let's come back to our first business process, which is procure to pay. And, you know, one of the things that I find in talking to prospects is this is an area in many companies where they don't have a clue what they're spending those dollars on, so they don't know what they're buying. They don't have any automation, so there's nothing that's really helping them. It's a manual process of passing paper from person to person. Now, we all know that that just opens up a whole lot of opportunities for errors, for things to get lost, for things to just not happen because it gets stuck in someone's in basket. So here's where we're going to start our story today. We're going to start as an employee, and in this case, remember I'm single company, but I have 2 locations. So I have a location in New York, I have a location in San Francisco. Jay Resource is my employee, and this is his dashboard. So the things that are important to Jay are really about his expenses and perhaps his timesheets. So if I, scroll down here, you'll see here's his expenses, here's his timesheets. Well, that's because Jay wants to make sure he gets paid. In addition to that, his role within the company is in purchasing, and what we've allowed him to do through our security and permissioning is to create purchase requisitions. So here's what's going to happen. Jay has been looking for a new office desk, and he's found one in the Staples catalog. So today he's going to create a purchase requisition, and that purchase requisition for that desk is going to go to an approver. So let's go ahead and enter this purchase requisition. A lot of basic information here about Staples, their terms, and then down here is the desk that Jay has picked out. It's $300, and to make sure that he gets the desk that he really wants, Jay has scanned in a picture of that desk. So here's the desk that he wants, and this picture is going to follow this transaction completely through into the historical view of this transaction. So anybody that needs to see what the desk looks like, they'll be able to do that. Now, if we go ahead and submit that, we're going to come back over to the controller's dashboard, and we've set up a dashboard around purchasing that's going to allow us to approve from the dashboard. So here's our purchasing transactions. Let's go ahead and take a look at that purchase requisition for that desk. And here it is. Here is the desk that Jay is requisitioning, and here is the picture of that desk. So we've got that picture. We've also got the history, so we know exactly what's happening with this transaction. Once we have looked at it, then we're going to come in and we're going to either approve or decline it. Now, when Jay submitted this requisition, Carla, as the controller and approver, got an email, and it notified her that she had something to approve. It also showed up here on her dashboard. When she approved this requisition, Jay got an email back letting him know that it had been approved. So we've got that communication working back and forth, and that's all because of that automated workflow. Now, once this requisition has been approved, it's going to start through a process. And before we move to that process, let's take a look at what the process is. So we created a purchase requisition. We stopped here, got it approved. We're going to convert that to a purchase order. We're going to receive the desk, and then we're going to receive the vendor invoice. We're going to be doing that accounting match here for those of you who are accounting folks, and that's going to make sure that we are receiving the right quantity and we're being billed or charged the right dollar amount. Any of those variances we can track and post in Intacct. So let's pick up that process here at purchase requisition. Let's convert that to a purchase order. Now, the important thing for you to see here is no rekeying of information. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add UPS as my shipper. So here's my desk and all my information, and let's go ahead and post that requisition. Once we've post that purchase order. Once we've posted the purchase order, we're going to print it, or we're going to electronically email it to Staples and get that desk on order. Once the desk comes into our warehouse, we're then going to go through PO receiving, and we're going to receive that desk in. We're going to make sure that we did get this desk and we got it in this quantity. Once we've done that, we'll go ahead and post the transaction. 2-3 days will go by, and Staples will then send us a vendor invoice. And that vendor invoice, again, is what we're going to electronically match to our purchase order, verifying that we're being billed $300. And we're going to key in a vendor invoice. So we'll go ahead and key that in, and we'll post that vendor invoice. Now, once we have completed that part of the process, let's go back and look at exactly what has happened historically. We started out with a requisition, we got it approved, we converted it to a PO, then we received the desk, and then we received the vendor invoice. So all of these steps have been documented historically, and they are our online filing cabinet. So we can look at this at any time we choose to. Now, the second half of the process is over in accounts payable. So let's take a look at that. This is a process map, and the process maps are included with every application. So it's a pictorial map of the process. You saw the process in purchasing. Here's the process in AP. Normally, if you didn't have a purchase order, you would enter a vendor bill here, but we've already done that. We've already attached that vendor invoice to the purchase order. But you could enter a vendor bill here that did not have a purchase order associated with it. We're going to pick up the process here at Select Bills to Pay. We may or may not go through approved payments. I'll explain that. And then we're going to print the checks. Then we'll come back in and we'll look at some of the standard reports in accounts payable. So let's go to Select Bills to Pay. And here you have many choices. And that's one thing you'll learn about Intacct. You get a lot of choices in how you want to filter the data. So we're going to ask for everything for staples, just for this one vendor, everything that's due through the end of January 2014. Now, excuse me, I could filter this down to a range of vendors, or I could say all vendors. I can also choose to filter on the bills as well. But we're going to open this up. We'll take a look at what is out there ready to be paid, and there is our $300 invoice. So we'll select that. We'll pay it in full. We could also pay it partially if we chose to. And once we have selected that, then we'll come in and print those vendor checks. Now, a couple of choices here. You can print on plain paper. Intacct does that very well, prints the MICR checks on blank paper, or you can print on pre-printed checks, either way. We're going to choose plain paper. We're going to print a check and two stubs, one for us and one for the vendor. Once this check has been printed, I'll look at it. I'll make sure that it's good to go, and it is. And then I will come in and I will post that check. Now, posting that check now gives me the ability to come in and look at some of my reporting. One report that I look at is the AP ledger. Again, choices. Do you want to see all vendors, a certain vendor, a certain type of vendor? Do you want a certain date or certain month? So you've got a lot of choices here. So we'll just leave it open to show us everything. And here is our staples, and here is our $300 invoice, and here is our $300 payment. Earlier today, I entered another $300 invoice and payment. So that's why you see these two transactions here, actually these four transactions. This information is drillable, so I can drill back into the details of these transactions. So here's the check register that shows me all the detail of the check that I just cut. So all of this information is really available to you whenever you need to look at it. Other reports that you might want to look at in accounts payable might be your vendor aging, and you can see that in a report format or in a graph. You may want to look at the bills register, or, as I showed you, the check register. These are reports that Intacct has already created for you, and they're available anytime you choose to execute them. So let's do a quick review on what we did and what the value is to you. Remember, we started out in purchasing. We started out as that employee. We entered a purchase requisition. We submitted it for approval. And then once it was approved, we walked it through this complete process. Now, the reason it went to that automated workflow was because of how we set up the purchasing. So when we configured purchasing, we had a choice to implement any of those workflow rules. So here are those approvals, and here are the approval amounts. So you can have your approvals based on amount. They can also be based on transaction type, which is what I did. I said if you enter a purchase requisition, it needs to go to that employee's manager. So in my case, I entered it as J, and Carla, the controller, is J's manager. And that's why Carla got the notification. She got the email. She got the notification on her purchasing dashboard. Now, this is all controlled by you. So you get to pick and choose how you want to use the workflow. But that's why it happened and how it happened. And if your process changes, you control how this is set up. So you can come in and change it. The second half of the transaction was over here in payables. So you saw me pick up the process here at Select Bills to Pay. I didn't go through this second approval, and I'll tell you why and how it's used. Let's say that you want to put a rule in that says any check that's over X number of dollars, let's say $5,000, has to go through an approval before the check can be printed. This approved payments here is the step in the process, and the workflow behind that is something that you control. So that threshold, that dollar threshold, is what you control in the approved payments. So another step in the process that you can opt to use now or opt to use in the future. And then we went to printing checks, and after we printed checks, we came in and we talked about the standard report. So that's the procure to pay process. I'm going to stop here and open it up and see if we have any questions.
Hi, Linda. Okay, so there are a few questions. So one is, can multiple people/departments submit requisitions approved by the department to purchasing for consolidation into one purchase order and shipment?
Yes, you can. And, excuse me, when you set that up, you would set up the purchase requisition as the document that you want the approval. And then instead of going to the employee manager, you can set it up to a departmental manager, and it can have up to 5 different levels of people that can approve it. So it might be that, you know, let's say it comes to me first and I approve it, and then it would go to Key and Key would approve it. And you can have five of those steps. Then what happens is you can consolidate that together. You might think of it as a merge, to merge those requests together to create one purchase order. Now, that's a configuration option. Some companies don't want that to happen, so we make that something that you choose. So when you configure purchasing, you determine and turn that functionality on that allows you to merge transactions. We do the same thing in order to cash in your order entry. You know, you might have several sales orders that you want to merge together and invoice all together on one invoice. Again, that's an option, a choice that you make in your configuration.
Okay, another is, how do you handle invoice payments being made by a credit card instead of a check?
Okay, great question. So there's a cash management application in Intacct, and cash management, I'm showing you the process map here. Cash management is where you're going to do a lot of those banking type functions, if you will. So one of the things that you're going to do is you're going to set up your checking accounts and your saving accounts. One thing that I didn't mention, but I'll mention it since we're here, is you can have multiple checking accounts, and you can pay those vendor invoices out of different banks. So you can have a default bank that comes up, but then you can switch that and you can pay out of different banks. As far as charge cards are concerned, you can also set up multiple charge cards. I've got a corporate charge card here. And so when you set up these charge cards, then you'll record the payment and back against that activity that you've keyed in. So setting it up here in cash management, and then you'll go through a reconciliation process similar to what you would do in a bank rec, and this is where you have the ability to do your checking account reconciliations. You'll do your charge card reconciliation as well. So all done here within cash management. You can set up as many of those charge cards as you need to and do your reconciliations from here. You can import those transactions from the charge card to do that reconciliation.
Okay, and then we'll tackle 2 more. Just could you touch on how Intacct interfaces with third-party payment services such as Bill.com?
Yes, so Bill.com is going to do a little bit more than just pay your bills. They're going to really, kind of take over that accounts payable process for you. They're going to do a lot more with electronically paying for you which, by the way, Intacct has the capability to do ACH. ACH is something that we, in the past, we did not do, but we do have the ability to do ACH. So when you saw me go through the Select Bills for Pay and go to that screen, instead of cutting a check, I could have generated an ACH file, and generating that ACH file would then have allowed me to send that to the bank and have the bank create electronic checks. Bill.com will do that for you as well. As far as integrations between third parties like Bill.com and Intacct, one of the reasons that is so successful and works so well is because of the open architecture in Intacct, and because we work very hard to have these open relationships with other best-in-class applications. So Bill.com being one of them, Salesforce is one that you're going to see today. If you want to know more of the details around Bill.com, I would offer you up the Intacct Marketplace. And normally I have it up here, but I don't have it up today. So I'll tell you how to get to it. If you go to our website and you go to Partners, you will see a section drop down that says Intacct Marketplace. If you click on Intacct Marketplace, you'll see a good sampling of all of the integrations that are in play with Intacct. So you'll see companies like Bill.com, Adaptive Planning, Salesforce, Host Analytics. There's probably 70, 80 that are listed there. If you click on one of those, then you can see the details, like a data sheet about a particular company's solution offering. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in that, check out the Intacct Marketplace to see more details.
Okay. I think there are additional questions, but I think we could save those for additional sections.
Okay, that sounds great. So let's talk about our second process, and that is order to cash. And most companies that I've worked with would say, you know, we have an order entry department. This is where we take our sales orders, and we're very different. Nobody really takes orders like we do. And so for that reason, there usually are a lot of requirements for being flexible around order management, sales order management. And I say that specifically because, you know, we could be talking about purchase orders or sales orders, so I'll be distinct here and say sales orders. Now, part of that process many times is taking a lead, and we do this in our own company, taking a lead and nurturing that lead. And by nurturing, I mean calling them, reaching out to them, sending them things, having conversations, going through discovery, really qualifying and making sure that we have a good fit before they become what you might call a prospect. Now, this whole process that you're going through many times is a manual process. Companies now are beginning to automate that process. They see the benefit of automating that process. So what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you order to cash, but I'm going to start that process in Salesforce. So let's go take a look at Salesforce. And if you're not familiar with Salesforce, this is not a Salesforce demo. I'm just going to touch on a few things so you kind of get the lay of where I'm going to go. So first of all, Salesforce is another best-in-class application. It's one that we have developed an integration to, and the integration is bidirectional. So, you know, the net of that means that we're passing information back and forth between these two applications. Again, because our architecture is open, and because of the technology that we use, we're able to do this. Now, from a business perspective, if I am, let's say, a sales rep, and I'm talking to these folks that are leads, these leads may have come from some sort of a marketing campaign. Perhaps our company went to a trade show. We gathered a bunch of business cards, we've pumped them in, and, here's the campaign, and here's how it's performing, etc. From this campaign, we're going to get these leads, and these leads are ones that, again, we're going to nurture with the hope and the basis that we're going to convert them to accounts. And this is where I'm going to pick up the story. So I stay in Salesforce all day long. If someone calls me, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to their account. So that's what's happened here. BioCirca has called me, and I am now looking at BioCirca's account. So I have a lot of information here about BioCirca. If I scroll down, you'll see I've got some sections of information. So I've got contacts and opportunities and quotes and orders. So I've got a lot of information here about BioCirca as a company. Now, some of this information has come from Intacct because I am syncing to Intacct, and all of these little buttons here that you see, the customer aging and the ledger and sales analysis, these are all buttons that are going to link me and take me right into Intacct. So these are pre-programmed buttons that you can add and change and direct into Intacct. That's part of that integration. Now, what's important in the integration and the touch point is opportunity. So with BioCirca, there could be multiple sales reps working with that one company, and each one of those sales reps could be working on a different opportunity. Today, I'm working with BioCirca and trying to sell them some additional hardware. So this is the opportunity that I am working on. Now, Key might be working with BioCirca, and she might be working on selling them some consulting time. We are working on two different opportunities within one account, and that's perfectly fine. They're going to stand independently. So within this opportunity for additional hardware, what I'm trying to sell them and get them to order is some alarm systems. Now, I've got a quantity and I've got a sales price here, and we've agreed upon this. I've called them, we've talked about it. They want to order 50. I've given them some special pricing. All of these products, these alarm systems, all of these products are products or items that are in Intacct. So this long list here that you see, these are all items that exist in Intacct. So I build them once, and then I share them between these two applications. So today, to pick up our story here, today BioCirca has called and said we're ready to order those alarm systems. So what I'm going to do from Salesforce is I'm going to create a sales order. It's going to open up a secure connection with Salesforce. That is going to take everything from the opportunity and it's going to drop it into a sales order form on the Intacct side. So no rekeying of information. The only thing I need to do is I need to indicate my currency, and I'm going to select US dollars, and then I'm going to post the sales order. And when I post it, it's going to create a sales order on the Intacct side, $14.49, and it's also going to create that sales order or move that information back over to Salesforce. So if I go to my sales order list here, $14.49 is the sales order that we just created. We created it from that opportunity. So if BioCirca calls me back, I can tell them, your order number is $14.49, the total amount is $25,000. If they want to change the sales order or delete it, I can certainly do it right here from Salesforce. Now, I may not be a financial person. I'm a salesperson. So I'm not controlling the financial piece of it, yet I'm integrated to the financial information so that it's right here at my fingertips. So I don't have to go back and forth. Excuse me, I don't have to bounce back and forth. I can see what I need to see from the Salesforce side so that I can be, customer-centric and answer any of those customer questions and not have to transfer someone to accounts receivable or to accounting because I have that information right here in front of me. Now, A couple of things before we leave Salesforce and go to Intacct. If you don't have Salesforce, perhaps you're evaluating it. This is a great way for you to see how the integration works. Again, you can check them out on the Intacct Marketplace. If you don't have Salesforce but you're evaluating something else, perhaps it's Microsoft or Sugar, we have integrations to those as well. Those were created by partners, by Intacct partners, again, on the Intacct Marketplace. So I guess my net of this is, don't shy away because you don't use Salesforce, because there are other CRM applications, customer relationship management applications, that we have integrations to. So let's go pick up the order entry part of it. So you saw that we have an order 1449, I believe is the order number. So let's go to order entry in Intacct, and here is our order 1449. Now, this is going to be just the flip side of purchasing. So what you saw me do in purchasing, I'm going to do basically the same thing here in sales, except now I'm converting a sales order to a shipper. So I have the order, I've packed it, now I'm going to ship this, and I'm going to pick how I'm going to ship it. Here's my alarm systems, and everything looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and post that. Once I post that shipper, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a sales invoice. And this invoice now is going to have the sales tax on it if someone is taxable. So this is something that you're going to be able to control whether or not someone is taxable. So once we've got that, we'll go ahead and post that sales invoice. And again, this is just like what you saw on the purchasing side. You've got the history tab. The history tab is going to show you that we started out as a sales order, we moved to a shipper, and then we created a sales invoice. Couple of things I want you to take away here. One, whatever was on that opportunity, we didn't have to rekey it to create a sales order. Once it got over to Intacct as a sales order, if there was something else that we needed to add to that order, we could certainly do that before we invoiced it. So once it gets over to Intacct and we've got that order, then we can create the shipping documents, we can create the sales invoice, and ultimately post that. Now, the next step of the process is really in accounts receivable. So we've got an invoice out there. We want to make sure that we record the payment. And that's done over here in AR. So again, you've got your AR process map. You see here that you've got an area where you can receive payments. And that's where we'll pick this up, is at the receiving payments. Again, you've got the ability to have multiple banks that you can deposit to. I'm going to put this into Wells Fargo. When I key this to my customer, I'm going to have some choices. I can key in, let's see how much I'm going to get from them, $2,500, and put in my check number. And I can ask the system to apply that $2,500 to the oldest invoice until it runs out of money, which in this case won't take long. Or I can apply that $2,500 to a specific invoice, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to apply this to that last invoice, and we'll go ahead and save that. Now, this is a very simple order to cash where we started out in Salesforce, we walked it through, created our shipping documents, and then invoiced it, and now we've received a payment. Again, in accounts receivable, just like in accounts payable, you've got a whole list of standard reports that you can execute. In addition to that, you may have some reports that you want to look at from an order entry standpoint. So you may want to look at things like shipment history or item profitability or sales analysis. If you are a company that does not deal with inventory items and you want to just do a simple, quick AR invoice, you can certainly do it right through accounts receivable. So you could have created an invoice here, received a payment, and still been able to do all of your standard AR reports that Intacct has created for you. So the beauty of what we've done here is we've married the front end of the office, the sales part of the office, with the back end being the financial management. And we're able to take all that information and, of course, put that specifically on dashboards where it's visible to individuals based on their role. So before I open it up for questions, let me just show you, in case you were wondering if Intacct is real-time data. I'm back at my controller dashboard. Here's my P&L report. Let's just take a look at the information that's out there. And one of the things that you'll see here is I've got $50,000 in sales, and I can drill into that information, and here are the two invoices. Again, I did one earlier today. This is the one that I just did for $25,000. And I can drill back to that source document. So what I'm saying to you now is this is real-time data. This is information that the minute you post, it's there. It's in the report. It's on the dashboards. It's at your fingertips. Here's all the information. Here is the $2,500 that you saw me key in as a cash receipt. And this is going to give us all the information about that cash receipt, the bank it went into, and all the particulars. It's also going to allow me to go to the sales invoice itself. So this is the source document. Here's that history tab that we looked at earlier, and here's the payment details, which again is the cash receipt. Tells me the bank, the date, the amount, everything about what I keyed in as a payment. So that is the order to cash process with a little sidebar back to the dashboard. Any questions, Key, that I can answer?
Okay, we do have several. I'm going to ask a few short ones first. One is, can you export to Excel?
Yes, you can. And in many cases, the export is already part of your menu. So if you want to export information out, you'll just have to click on a button that's already there to export that information out. We also have, in many cases, the ability to import. And again, that's something that streamlines your process. So if you want to import a budget, as an example, in General Ledger, that is certainly available for you to do that. We also give you, in the company area, in the setup area, we've created templates that allow you to import data. So we've created a template. You populate the template, click on import, and we'll import that information in. It may be conversion data that you want to pull in to save you steps in converting. Or it may be transactions on a recurring basis that you want to pull in. I saw a question came up, can I import pricing? Absolutely, you can. Okay, good.
And then the other question is around, oh wait, hold on a quick second. Can you see financials in both cash basis and an accrual basis?
Yes, you can, and that's something that you get to choose. Again, we're back to being able to have those choices. When you configure Intacct, basically when you initially start out with your environment, you're going to have some questions that you're going to need to answer. And to help you answer those, to make sure that you understand, what happens if I answer it this way versus this way, when you implement, whether you implement with us or you use one of our partners, you'll have a project manager. And they're going to go over all of those questions that you need to answer from a setup perspective and tell you the consequences of answering it, this way or that way. And that's one of those questions that you will talk about and you'll be able to choose. Are you cash, accrual, or both? And then if you are both, you'll set up some additional ledgers. As Key mentioned, and I don't think we made a big to-do about it, we are multi-everything. We're multi-book, multi-ledger, we're multi-entity, we're multi-currency. So setting up those multiple journals is something that you would do for cash and accrual.
Okay. So there was a few questions, so I'm going to summarize because it was all in regards to the integration between Intacct and Salesforce and whether this was a batched process or a daily feed. And I know you mentioned that it is actual real-time integration.
So that's one of the configuration things that you determine. How often do you want that integration that syncing, if you will, to happen? So if you want it to be real-time and you want it to happen, you can do that. You also get to control what information gets synced, because let's understand that every time you get a lead, just because it's a lead, you don't want those leads to be synced over to Intacct as customers, because they're not. You don't want to kludge up your customer listing in Intacct. So everything that's considered a lead over in Salesforce doesn't automatically become a customer or something in your Intacct master file. So all of those configuration options as to how often and what gets integrated and synced over is something that you will go through in the integration setup.
Okay, and then we'll just do one more question. It's around deferred revenue.
Okay.
Hold on one quick second. There's a lot of questions. I have to scroll back up. Okay.
Okay.
Says, how about recurring revenue-based businesses? How do changes or charges to existing contract revenue get handled from Salesforce to opportunities?
Okay, so what happens, and that's kind of an involved question, but I'm going to hit the high points so that you can kind of get an idea of how the dots are connected. So revenue recognition in Intacct is something that not everybody needs, but if you need it, then revenue management is what the application is called, and the way that we do it is through setting up what we call revenue recognition templates. Now those are housed in order entry, and you can define as many templates as you choose to. Think of templates as the rules behind how you want to recognize the revenue. Now that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is when you set up the item, and let's just say that the item was services or consulting, you would then indicate in the item master for that item that item has a start and end date, and that it has a revenue recognition template associated with it. So that when you enter a sales order for that service or consulting, it knows that's an item that has revenue management turned on, if you will. And as it's turned on, it's going to come back to whatever template is associated with it to get the details of how it's supposed to recognize that revenue. So if I come in here and just open up a monthly subscription one, you'll see that you have some choices in how you define those rules for revenue recognition. Now, because that sales order is getting updated in Intacct, if you change the recognition management or the recognition template that's associated with that line item on that sales order, because that sales order is integrated over to Salesforce, Salesforce will get that change. Now, are there some caveats as to, what happens if somebody puts their, let's say they put their services or their consulting on hold? How do you want to resume that? Do you want us to catch it up? Do you want us to walk it forward? There's some differences in how you want to handle that, and we give you the flexibility to really set these rules up the way you need to. So if you need more information, which I'm going to pretty much guess that you do, I would suggest one of two things. One, you reach back to us and let us answer those questions with a revenue management expert. So we'll get you a subject matter expert to talk with you. Second, we do occasionally have separate product tours that address revenue management more in detail. So I would encourage you to check those out, and you might get signed up for one of those tours. But that was the Reader's Digest condensed version of revenue management.
Okay, thank you. I think for the interest of time, we'll try to get to our third segment.
Okay, that sounds great. So you've seen me go to the dashboard several times. So one of the things that I showed you just a few minutes ago was the ability to drill down. And I was drilling down on this P&L report from the controller dashboard. That drill down capability and going back to the source document, it works. It works on any report. It works on any dashboard. It's not unique to just being the controller. The other thing I would point out is you may be wanting to track other types of information besides financial information. You may want to track what we call operational information. You can certainly do that in Intacct and set up those types of reports. I have this one on my dashboard. It's around square feet, revenue per square foot. I've set up a report where I've got financial information, revenue, bouncing back against what I call a statistical account in Intacct, square foot. This 200,000 represents the total square feet that I have in warehouse space, and I'm calculating that out to see that I've got 25 cents per square foot as of this month. So as I key in more revenue, it will continue to drive this number here. And then I've set it up as a 12-month rolling bucketed type report. Any operational data that you choose to track, you can certainly do that and set up reports. You may not have warehouse space, and square feet may mean nothing to you, but it might be head count, it might be attendance, it might be deal count, it could be inpatient, outpatient. Any type of operational data can be tracked. Now, all of these reports that you see on these dashboards that we've looked at are all coming from one area, basically. They're coming from the report center. And there's a couple things that I want to make sure that I talk about. One is, the different types of reports. And the second thing that I want to, talk about a little bit is a huge differentiator in Intacct when it comes to reporting, and that is the use of dimensions. And dimensions are a way for us to filter the data. So as an example, I told you that we have a New York and a San Francisco location in this company. This profit and loss detail report, this is the one that you saw me run from the dashboard. It's here in my favorite report. So it's one that I utilize often, so I put it in its own little separate menu. I also can schedule this report to run unattended, so I can set it up on a calendar to run by itself. When I execute the report, I can execute it in HTML and a PDF format. Someone asked, can you export? Absolutely, you can export these reports into different file formats. The scheduler here, I just talked about that. But more importantly, executing this report is very simple. Changing it is very simple. So if I look at the report one more time just to give you a view, this is what the report looks like. So this is the profit and loss detail report. You saw that earlier, just to give you a point of reference. Here are all of the sections of the report that you build. And as you build them, we've got help along the way. So examples, we've got, click on the question mark to tell me more. You're going to define the rows and the columns on this report. You're going to define the level of detail that you want. Do you want summary? Do you want detail? To what level do you want to see it? What columns do you want? So, in this case, I've got the current month and then the previous 2 months. Maybe you're looking at a budget versus actual, so you're going to set up 3 different columns and show the difference in either dollars or percentage or both. Perhaps you want to do one of those reports like I did with square feet. So you want to do a computation. You can certainly do that. When we come to filters, this is the power behind the reporting. You've got 8 predefined dimensions, starting here with department down to employee. Those are the 8 predefined that Intacct furnishes for you. When you enter transactions, you can tag those transactions with one or more of those 8 dimensions. Then, when you execute reports, perhaps you want to execute the report for a specific location, New York or San Francisco, or all business units, or set up a group, some sort of a group of business units. You get to choose how you want to filter the data to get the information out, either very detailed or very broad. You can combine these dimensions. So you could say, I want all departments in New York, but only for this particular item, alarm systems. So being able to combine these dimensions for reporting is very powerful. And then, of course, the other things that you are able to do is set permissions on the dashboard, set permissions on the individual reports, and then, of course, set permissions on your users. So you saw me come in as an employee user, and you saw me as a controller, and I had different permissions. And then, of course, once you define that report, and this happens to be a financial report, you can add it immediately to your favorites, you can schedule it, you can push it out to a dashboard, and you can set it up in a report grouping. One more quick comment, and then I know we're at the top of the hour. Reports. Intacct provides you with 3 different reporting engines. When you implement, there are about 150 reports already ready to go for you. There's about 30 financial reports, 120 reports across the subsystems. You can create your own custom reports. This is a report writer that we have generated and created. It comes with the Intacct solution. So lots of reporting options. We do have a separate reporting tour. We have one this Thursday. Love for you to join us on that tour. I'm going to flip it back to you, Key, and let you do your wrap-up.
All right. Thank you, Linda, so much. And I do appreciate for those that are going to remain on just for a few more minutes as we do a wrap-up and summary. Do want to just point out, as far as what our customers are seeing today, there we go. So for what our customers are seeing, we're seeing a payback in a year or less. So most of our customers are achieving their return on investments with Intacct in less than 6 months. So ultimately, you are getting 30% more productivity with the same number of staff, possibly holding out on hiring additional headcount, so that these benefits can really add up to savings of equal to 1 or 2 headcounts, which means you can really, again, reallocate your team's resources to work on those key projects that you might have been putting off. So with that, we hope you've gotten a lot of value out of your time spent with us here today, and we hope it inspires you to take a closer look at how Intacct might help your organization. As Linda mentioned, there are several webinars that are upcoming. We encourage you to take a look at our upcoming calendars at intacct.com/webinars. We also do offer a free trial available, and an email that follows this presentation will have information on how to access that. And if you do have any additional questions, please call us at 877-437-7765. But again, for those that we did not get to your questions, we will follow up with you afterwards. Thanks, everyone, for your time today, and we hope you will continue along in your evaluation of Intacct. Thank you.